The empath is extraordinary, possesses capacity most people don't possess, can love someone through their worst moments, can understand patterns that others would judge harshly, can hold space for a wounded person who's hiding behind defended walls, can maintain patience when anyone else would have given up, can see potential in someone everyone else has written off, can remain present through withdrawal cycles that would make most people leave, can accept emotional unavailability that others would find intolerable, can forgive repeatedly for the same hurtful patterns, can maintain hope that transformation is possible when all evidence suggests otherwise. The empath's capacity isn't weakness, is profound strength, is rare gift, is ability to love unconditionally in ways most humans can't sustain. The empath loving the avoidant is person with extraordinary capacity, choosing to direct that capacity toward person who desperately needs it. The empath sees beneath the defended surface, sees the wounded child hiding there, sees the potential for healing if only the avoidant felt safe enough to be vulnerable, sees that the patterns, the withdrawal, the emotional unavailability, the defended distance aren't who the avoidant truly is, but are protective mechanisms built to survive emotionally unsafe early environments. The empath's understanding creates willingness to stay, to be patient, to give the avoidant time and space to feel safe enough to drop defenses. The empath knows the avoidant is worth it, knows that beneath the defending is person capable of love and connection and intimacy, knows that healing is possible, knows that patience might be what finally creates the safety the avoidant needs to transform. This knowledge, this seeing of the avoidant's true self, despite the defended presentation, is what makes the empath stay through patterns that others wouldn't tolerate. And this staying through difficulty is heroic, is demonstration of love in its most patient form, is gift being offered to someone who needs exactly this gift. But there comes a moment, a specific moment, when something shifts, when a line gets crossed that can't be uncrossed, when the avoidant makes emotional mistakes so profound that even the empath's extraordinary capacity reaches its limit, when the empath, who has stayed through everything, who has tolerated patterns that would make others leave, who has maintained patience that seems unlimited, finally recognizes that staying is no longer loving, is betrayal, is sacrificing self for someone who won't honor the sacrifice by doing work to become worthy of it. Understanding what emotional mistake makes the empath finally leave reveals where even extraordinary patience has limits, why those limits protect both people, what the mistake reveals about the avoidant's unwillingness versus their inability, and why the empath leaving after this mistake is them finally choosing themselves after a long period of choosing the avoidant over themselves. What makes the empath extraordinary? The capacity that allows them to stay when others would leave. Understanding what the empath possesses that others lack helps recognize why their eventual leaving is so significant, because the person who stays through everything has finally reached the point where staying becomes impossible. They see potential instead of just patterns. Where others see dysfunction requiring leaving, the empath sees wounded person requiring patience. Most people see the avoidance patterns and make judgment, see withdrawal and judge them as emotionally unavailable, see defended distance and judge them as incapable of intimacy, see repeated hurtful behavior and judge them as not caring. The judgment leads to leaving, leads to conclusion that person who behaves this way isn't worth staying for. But empath sees differently, sees the same patterns everyone else sees, but interprets them differently, sees withdrawal as protection mechanism, not as personal rejection, sees defended distance as survival strategy learned in childhood, not as indifference, sees repeated hurtful behavior as compulsion driven by wounds, not as intentional harm, This different seeing creates different response. Where others judge and leave, empath understands and stays. Where others see person not worth the effort, empath sees person who deserves patience because their current patterns don't reflect their true capacity. The empath's ability to see potential instead of just patterns is gift, is what allows them to maintain hope when hope seems unreasonable, is what allows them to stay present when presence seems pointless, is what allows them to keep believing transformation is possible when all evidence suggests patterns are permanent. This seeing isn't naivety, isn't denial of reality, is sophisticated understanding that people can be more than their current patterns if given time and support and safety to heal what caused the patterns. The empath sees this possibility, sees that avoidant isn't their defended patterns. Is a wounded person using patterns to protect themselves until healing makes patterns unnecessary? This seeing is what makes empaths stay through difficulty that makes others leave. They can hold space for transformation without requiring immediate change, offering patience that gives the avoidant time to feel safe enough to heal. The empath doesn't require immediate change, doesn't give ultimatums demanding the avoidant transform right now or relationship ends, doesn't withdraw love when patterns persist. Instead, offers something most people can't offer: patience without timeline, space for the avoidant to transform at their own pace, acceptance of where they are, while maintaining hope they'll eventually be ready to become more. This holding space is profound gift, is creating environment where transformation becomes possible because pressure to change immediately is removed. The empath understands you can't force someone to heal, can't demand they drop defenses before they feel safe enough to drop them, can't require vulnerability before wounds are addressed that made vulnerability feel dangerous. The understanding creates patience, creates willingness to be present through the process, however long the process takes, creates acceptance that healing happens on the wounded person's timeline, not on the partner's desired timeline. The empath's capacity to hold space without requiring immediate change is what the avoidant needs, is exactly the gift that could create the safety necessary for healing. But the capacity has limits, has threshold beyond which holding space becomes enabling, beyond which patience becomes self-betrayal, beyond which acceptance becomes accepting harm. The empath can hold space for transformation, but holding space requires the person whose transformation is being held space for to be moving toward transformation, even slowly, even with setbacks, but moving. When movement stops, when the avoidant isn't moving toward transformation, but is comfortable in defended position that the empath's patience makes sustainable, when holding space is preventing transformation rather than supporting it, that's when the extraordinary capacity reaches its limit. They can love the wounded self without requiring the defended self to disappear, accepting all parts while maintaining hope the wounds can heal. The deepest capacity, the empath, can love the wounded self, can see the defended patterns and understand their protecting wounded child inside, can accept the wounded self with tenderness even while that wounded self's defenses are creating harm. This acceptance of wounded self is rare. Most people require you to be your best self to deserve love, require you to have your patterns managed, your wounds healed, your defenses down before you're worthy of their care. But empath loves differently, loves the wounded parts, loves the defended self protecting those wounded parts, loves all of it, the beautiful and the broken, the healed and the wounded, the open and the defended. This unconditional acceptance is what the avoidant's wounded self has always needed and never received, is the specific medicine that could heal what caused the defending. is love that says, you're worthy even while wounded, lovable even while defended, acceptable even while patterns are difficult. The empath offering this love to the avoidant is person with extraordinary capacity, offering exactly what person with profound wounds needs to heal. But there comes a point where loving the wounded self becomes enabling the defended self to stay defended, where acceptance becomes excuse for the avoidant not to do the healing work, where holding space for all parts becomes allowing the defended parts to dominate without requirement that wounded parts receive actual professional help. The empath can love the wounded self, but loving the wounded self can't become accepting that wounded self never seeks help, can't become tolerating defended patterns indefinitely because those patterns are protecting wounds. At some point, loving the wounded self means requiring the wounded self get professional help for the wounds, not continuing to absorb the impact of defenses that protect those wounds while the avoidant refuses to address the wounds themselves. The specific emotional mistake that crosses the line when the avoidant takes the empath's patience as permission to never transform. There's a specific mistake the avoidant makes, a moment when they reveal they're comfortable in defended position. The empath's patience makes sustainable, and this revelation is what finally makes the empath leave. The mistake, explicitly stating or implicitly showing they have no intention of doing the work, revealing comfort with status quo that only exists because the empath absorbs the costs. Throughout the relationship, the empath has been patient, has been understanding, has been holding space for transformation. The patience was based on implicit understanding. The avoidant needs time to feel safe enough to transform, and the empath's patience is providing that time. The empath is accepting current patterns while believing those patterns are temporary, are protection that will eventually become unnecessary when the avoidant does healing work that addresses underlying wounds. But then the moment comes, the moment when the avoidant reveals, through explicit statement or through clear implication, that they have no intention of doing the work, that they're comfortable as they are, that they don't see their patterns as problems requiring professional intervention, that they believe the relationship should continue indefinitely, with them remaining defended, while the empath continues accepting the defended position. This revelation is the emotional mistake, is the moment when the empath realizes the patience wasn't creating time for transformation, was creating comfort for the avoidant to remain defended indefinitely. The acceptance wasn't holding space for healing, was enabling continued wounding without consequence. The understanding wasn't supporting their growth, was allowing them to avoid growth by providing relationship that functions despite their patterns. The mistake isn't the patterns themselves. The empath has accepted the patterns. The mistake is revealing that patterns aren't temporary protection, but permanent position. That the avoidant isn't planning to transform, isn't going to seek therapeutic help, isn't interested in doing uncomfortable work of healing wounds, is comfortable being exactly as they are because the empath's extraordinary capacity makes being exactly as they are sustainable. This revelation is what makes the empath leave, because the empath can hold space for transformation indefinitely, but can't hold space indefinitely for someone who has no intention of transforming. What this reveals, they're choosing defended comfort over growth that would honor the empath's sacrifice, proving the sacrifice was never going to result in the healing it was supporting. The mistake reveals crucial distinction. The avoidant isn't unable to do the work, is unwilling to do the work. Isn't that they can't heal, is that they won't pursue healing. Isn't that transformation is impossible, is that transformation isn't desired because current position is comfortable enough. This distinction is what makes the mistake unforgivable to the empath. Because the empath's entire patience was based on believing the avoidant was unable to be vulnerable yet, unable to drop defenses yet, unable to do the work yet, with the yet implying eventual ability when safety was sufficient. But the mistake reveals the unable is actually unwilling. The not yet is actually not ever. The empath has been sacrificing themselves, accepting patterns that harm them, tolerating treatment that violates their needs, remaining patient through pain, believing the sacrifice was supporting transformation that would eventually occur when the avoidant felt safe enough. The mistake reveals the sacrifice wasn't supporting transformation, was making transformation unnecessary by creating comfortable life for the avoidant without requiring them to transform. The avoidant is choosing to stay defended, is choosing comfort over growth, is choosing to keep the empath's sacrifice as permanent feature rather than as temporary bridge to their healing. This choice is what makes the empath leave, because the empath can sacrifice temporarily for someone's healing, can't sacrifice indefinitely for someone's comfort, can hold space for person moving toward transformation, can't hold space for person who's revealed they're comfortable where they are and have no intention of moving. The choice the mistake reveals, choosing defended comfort over growth, proves the empath's sacrifice was never going to result in the transformation it was intended to support. Why even the empath can't stay after this. Accepting patterns while hoping for change is sustainable. Accepting patterns from someone committed to never changing is self-betrayal. The empath can stay through difficulty, through patterns, through pain. Can stay as long as hope exists that staying is supporting transformation, that patience is creating safety for healing, that sacrifice is temporary bridge to better future where the avoidant has done the work to become capable of reciprocal partnership. But hope requires some evidence, some sign the avoidant is moving toward transformation, some indication that healing is occurring, or at least that willingness to pursue healing exists. The mistake eliminates the evidence, eliminates hope, reveals that staying isn't supporting transformation because transformation isn't going to occur, reveals the sacrifice is permanent, not temporary, reveals the patterns aren't healing, but a permanent position. The avoidant is comfortable maintaining. Without hope, without evidence that staying is serving any purpose beyond making the avoidant comfortable in defended position, staying becomes self-betrayal, becomes choosing to continue sacrificing for someone who won't honor the sacrifice by doing work to become worthy of it, becomes accepting that the empath's needs will never be met because the avoidant has no intention of developing capacity to meet those needs. The empath can stay through almost anything, but can't stay through this. Can't stay when the staying is serving no purpose, except allowing the avoidant to remain comfortable without growth. Can't stay when hope for transformation is eliminated by revelation that transformation isn't desired. Can't stay when doing so would mean permanent self-betrayal for someone who's revealed they're committed to never doing the work that would make reciprocal partnership possible. Even the empath, with their extraordinary capacity, their profound patience, their unconditional love, has limits. The limit is this: will hold space for person moving toward healing, won't hold space indefinitely for person who's revealed they're comfortable being wounded and defended if it means the empath continues absorbing the impact of the defending. The uncomfortable mirror. Turn. If you're the empath, examine whether you've been seeing signs of this mistake and choosing not to see them. But if you're the empath reading this, examine honestly. Have you seen signs of this mistake before? Signs that the avoidant is comfortable where they are? Signs that transformation isn't happening? Signs that they have no intention of doing the work? And have you been choosing not to see those signs? Choosing to maintain hope despite evidence, Hope isn't warranted. Choosing to believe they're unable when they're actually unwilling. Because the empath's greatest strength, capacity to see potential, can become the empath's greatest vulnerability, can become capacity to see potential that doesn't exist, to maintain hope that isn't warranted by evidence, to interpret unwillingness as inability, because inability is more comfortable interpretation. The avoidant refusing to get therapy, despite patterns causing ongoing harm, is that inability or unwillingness. The avoidant expressing comfort with how they are, saying, "This is just who I am," about patterns that hurt you, is that inability to change or unwillingness to try. The avoidant saying they'll work on things, but never actually taking concrete steps toward change, is that inability to follow through or unwillingness to do uncomfortable work. Examine whether the emotional mistake you're waiting for has already occurred, whether the line you think hasn't been crossed has actually been crossed repeatedly, and you've been choosing not to recognize the crossing. Whether you've been staying, not because evidence supports hope for transformation, but because your capacity to see potential has become capacity to manufacture hope where none exists. Stop waiting for clearer sign. Stop requiring more explicit statement. Stop giving more chances after the mistake has already been made. The mistake might be occurring in small ways you're minimizing, might already have occurred, and you're choosing not to see it because seeing it means having to leave. See it. See the unwillingness you've been interpreting as inability. See the comfort with defended position you've been interpreting as temporary necessity. See the lack of movement toward transformation you've been interpreting as slower timeline than you prefer. See clearly, then choose accordingly. Choose yourself. Choose to stop holding space for someone who's shown they're comfortable in the space you're holding without having intention of transforming in that space. That's what this moment requires. Not waiting for clearer sign, acting on signs that are already clear if you're willing to see them. What happens in the moment? The line is crossed, the internal shift that makes leaving not just possible, but necessary. When the avoidant makes the emotional mistake, something shifts inside the empath. Understanding this shift helps recognize why going back after leaving would be betraying the truth the mistake revealed. The hope dies, not gradually, but suddenly, with clarity that's undeniable, creating grief that's freeing rather than devastating. When the mistake happens, when the avoidant reveals their comfort with defended position and lack of intention to transform, something dies in the empath. The hope dies. The hope that patience would create transformation. The hope that sacrifice was bridged to healing. The hope that staying was supporting growth. The hope dies suddenly, not gradually wearing away, not slowly eroding over time, dies in moment of recognition. In moment when the mistake makes undeniable what the empath may have been sensing but not admitting, the avoidant isn't going to do the work, isn't going to transform, is comfortable where they are and has no intention of becoming more. The death of hope should be devastating, should create despair, but it doesn't. Creates something unexpected, clarity, relief, freedom. The hoping was exhausting, was requiring the empath to maintain belief despite contrary evidence, was requiring manufacturing of reasons to stay when reasons were becoming increasingly flimsy. The death of hope eliminates the exhaustion, eliminates the mental gymnastics required to maintain belief, eliminates the need to manufacture reasons to stay. With hope dead, clarity arrives. Clarity that staying serves no purpose. That relationship has no future. That leaving is not giving up too soon, but recognizing truth that continued hoping was preventing from seeing. The clarity is freeing. Is permission to leave that the empath has been denying themselves as long as hope existed? is recognition that leaving isn't betrayal of the avoidant, but honoring of self. The grief is real. Grief for death of hope. Grief for relationship that won't become what it could have been. Grief for time invested in supporting transformation that isn't going to occur. But grief is freeing rather than devastating, is grief that creates space for new life rather than grief that binds to old one. The hope dying is what makes leaving possible, what makes it not just possible but necessary. The empath recognizes staying would be betraying themselves, not the avoidant, but their own worth and needs that have been sacrificed too long. Second shift, recognition of self-betrayal. The empath recognizes staying after the mistake would be betraying themselves. Throughout relationship, the empath has been sacrificing their needs for the avoidant's comfort, sacrificing their well-being for the avoidant's defended position, sacrificing their desires for partnership, for acceptance of whatever minimal connection the avoidant can provide. The sacrifice felt acceptable as long as it was serving purpose, as long as it was supporting transformation, as long as it was temporary bridge to better future. But the mistake reveals sacrifice isn't serving transformation. It's just sacrifice. It's permanent self-betrayal for someone's comfort. The recognition arrives. Staying is betraying self, is choosing to continue violating own needs for someone who won't honor that violation by doing work to become capable of meeting those needs, is choosing the avoidant over self in ways that are no longer justified by hope for future change. The recognition makes staying impossible because the empath, with all their capacity to love others, with all their ability to hold space for wounded people, with all their willingness to sacrifice, ultimately can't betray themselves indefinitely, has threshold beyond which self-sacrifice becomes self-destruction. The mistake pushes them past that threshold, creates recognition that staying is no longer loving, is self-betrayal, that leaving is no longer giving up, is choosing self, that the extraordinary capacity that made them stay must now be directed toward themselves through leaving someone who won't do work necessary to deserve that capacity. The recognition of self-betrayal is what makes leaving necessary. Not just possible, necessary. Because staying would be continuing betrayal the empath is no longer willing to engage in. The transformation of love, from unconditional acceptance to boundaried self-respect that recognizes love, shouldn't require constant self-sacrifice. Third shift, the love transforms, doesn't disappear, transforms. The empath still loves the avoidant, still sees the wounded person beneath the defending, still understands why patterns exist, still has compassion for the pain that created the defended position. The love remains. But the love transforms from unconditional acceptance to boundaried self-respect, transforms from love that stays through anything to love that recognizes loving someone shouldn't require permanent self-sacrifice. The transformed love says, I love you, and I can't stay with you. I understand you, and I won't continue accepting harm from you. I see your potential, and I recognize you're unwilling to pursue that potential. I have compassion for your wounds, and I require that you seek professional help for those wounds, rather than continuing to harm me through defending against them. The transformation is maturation of love. Is love becoming adult rather than remaining unconditional in ways that enable rather than support? Is recognition that real love includes boundaries, includes self-respect, includes refusing to participate in dynamic that harms one person while making other person comfortable? The transformed love is what makes leaving an act of love, not abandonment, not giving up, not failure. Act of love for self. Act that recognizes self-love is as important as love for wounded person. Act that honors both people. Avoidant by refusing to enable their comfort in defended position. Self by refusing to continue self-sacrifice that serves no purpose. The transformation of love is what makes leaving feel right, feel aligned, feel like the loving choice, even though it means ending relationship with someone the empath loves. The love transforms. The transformation is what creates the strength to leave. Why the empath leaving is gift to both people, even though only one person recognizes the gift. The empath's leaving after the emotional mistake serves both people. Understanding how helps the empath leave without guilt and helps recognize why staying would have served neither person. The leaving forces the avoidant to experience consequences. The only thing that might create motivation to do work the empath's presence was preventing need for. As long as the empath stays, the avoidant experiences no real consequences for defended position. Patterns don't cost them the relationship. Emotional unavailability doesn't produce loss. Refusal to do therapeutic work doesn't result in being alone. The empath's patience absorbs all consequences, makes defended position sustainable without cost. The sustainability is what prevents transformation. Why would someone do uncomfortable work of healing when comfortable defended position is sustainable? Why would someone pursue therapy when relationship continues despite patterns? Why would someone transform when transformation isn't necessary for maintaining connection they want? The empath's presence prevents consequences, prevents the pain that creates motivation. The leaving restores consequences. The avoidant loses the relationship, loses the empath who was making defended position sustainable, loses the partner who was accepting unacceptable patterns, loses the person whose patience was preventing need for growth. The loss is consequence, real, painful consequence that the empath's presence was preventing. Consequence might create motivation, might create pain sufficient to drive them toward therapeutic work, might create crisis that makes transformation appealing, because staying defended is now more painful than doing work to transform. The leaving is gift to the avoidance potential growth, is removal of the enabling that was preventing growth, is creation of the pain that might finally motivate genuine transformation. Most won't use the gift. Most will defend harder or find new empath to absorb their patterns. But some might use pain of loss to finally do the work, might transform, motivated by unbearable consequence. If transformation occurs, it serves their future even though it comes too late to serve relationship with the empath who left. The leaving is gift. Gift the avoidant probably won't recognize, but gift nonetheless. Gift of consequences that might motivate growth. The empath's presence was preventing. The leaving frees the empath to heal from what constantly absorbing impact of the avoidance patterns cost them. The empath staying was costing them, costing energy spent managing the avoidance patterns, costing emotional well-being sacrificed to accommodate defended position, costing self-respect violated through accepting treatment that violated stated needs, costing time invested in relationship that wasn't moving toward reciprocity. The costs were accumulating, were creating harm, were damaging the empath in ways the empath wasn't fully recognizing while focused on supporting the avoidance potential transformation. The leaving stops the costs, stops the energy drain, stops the sacrifice, stops the violation, stops the time investment in relationship that revealed itself as having no future. The stopping creates space, space for healing, space to process what the relationship cost, space to recover from damage that constant sacrifice created, space to restore the self-respect that was eroded through accepting unacceptable treatment, space to rebuild the energy that was depleted through managing someone else's patterns. The leaving is gift to self, gift of freedom to heal from what staying was costing, gift of space where empath can finally attend to own needs after extended period of attending only to avoidance defended comfort. The healing serves the empath's future, serves capacity to enter future relationships from healed place rather than from depleted place, serves ability to choose differently next time, to recognize unwillingness sooner, to enforce boundaries earlier, to leave before reaching complete depletion. The leaving as gift to self is what eliminates guilt. What makes leaving feel like self-care rather than abandonment? What recognizes that extraordinary capacity to love others must sometimes be directed towards self through leaving relationship that's harming self. Both people deserve better. The avoidant deserves to do the work that creates capacity. The empath deserves partner who already has capacity. The final truth: both people deserve better than the dynamic that was existing. The avoidant deserves to do the healing work, deserves to address the wounds driving defended position, deserves to transform into person capable of sustaining intimacy without terror, deserves to become someone who can honor exceptional partner like empath instead of someone who takes exceptional partner for granted. The avoidant deserves this, but deserving it doesn't mean they're pursuing it, doesn't mean they're doing the work. The empath leaving creates possibility, removes the comfort that was preventing pursuit of what they deserve, creates pain that might motivate them to finally pursue the healing they deserve, but aren't pursuing. The empath also deserves better, deserves partner who's already done the work, who has capacity for reciprocal partnership now, not potentially someday after years of empath sacrifice. Deserves someone who recognizes empath's exceptional nature and honors it through reciprocal exceptional treatment. Deserves someone who doesn't require empath to sacrifice self indefinitely while waiting for transformation that may never occur. The empath deserves this. Staying prevents getting it. Staying means continued investment in relationship that isn't serving empath's needs. Leaving creates possibility, creates space for empath to find partner who has capacity to meet empath's needs without requiring years of patience and sacrifice first. Both people deserving better is what makes leaving right choice. Right for the avoidant by creating consequences that might motivate pursuing what they deserve. Right for the empath by creating space to find what they deserve. The leaving serves both. Even if only one person recognizes it, serves both. The final truth about the emotional mistake that makes the empath leave. The empath is extraordinary, has capacity most people lack, can stay through patterns others wouldn't tolerate, can hold space for transformation with patience others couldn't sustain, can love wounded person unconditionally in ways that could create healing if the wounded person were willing to pursue healing. This extraordinary capacity is strength, not weakness. Is gift being offered to someone who desperately needs exactly this gift? The empath staying is heroic, is demonstration of love at its most patient and unconditional, is exactly what the avoidant needs to feel safe enough to heal. But there's a line where the extraordinary capacity reaches its limit, where patience becomes enabling, where unconditional love becomes self-betrayal. The line is crossed when the avoidant makes specific emotional mistake, revealing they're comfortable in defended position. The empath's patience makes sustainable and have no intention of doing the work that would transform defended position into healed capacity. The mistake reveals unwillingness masquerading as inability, reveals comfort where the empath believed there was suffering that would eventually motivate transformation, reveals the empath's sacrifice is permanent burden rather than temporary bridge to healing. The mistake is what makes even the empath leave, because the empath can hold space for transformation indefinitely. Can't hold space indefinitely for someone who's revealed transformation isn't desired or intended. Can sacrifice temporarily for someone's healing. Can't sacrifice permanently for someone's comfort. The leaving after this mistake is the empath finally choosing themselves, finally recognizing that loving someone shouldn't require permanent self-betrayal, finally understanding that their extraordinary capacity must be protected by directing it only toward people who honor it, by doing work to become worthy of it. The leaving is appropriate, is necessary. Is the empath's extraordinary capacity finally being used to serve the empath through the strength to leave relationship that's harming them? The leaving serves both people, serves the avoidant by creating consequences that might motivate the transformation the empath's presence was preventing need for, serves the empath by creating space to heal from what staying was costing and to find partner who has capacity for reciprocal partnership without requiring years of patience first. The mistake that makes the empath leave is the avoidant choosing comfort over growth. The empath leaving is the empath choosing self over continued sacrifice for someone who won't honor that sacrifice. Both choices are permanent. Both create permanent consequences. The avoidant loses the relationship. The empath gains freedom. Both outcomes are appropriate. Both serve their purposes. If you're the empath, recognize when the line is crossed. Recognize when patience has become enabling. Recognize when the mistake has occurred, when the avoidant has revealed through statement or implication that they're comfortable where they are and have no intention of transforming. Then choose yourself. Choose to direct your extraordinary capacity toward your own healing. Choose to leave someone who won't do the work necessary to deserve your continued presence. The leaving isn't giving up, is recognizing the truth and honoring it, is choosing yourself after a long period of choosing them over yourself. Choose yourself. Leave. Direct your extraordinary capacity toward finding partner who already has capacity to meet your needs instead of toward supporting transformation that's revealed itself as never going to occur. If you're the avoidant, recognize the mistake before it's too late. Recognize that the empath's patience isn't permission to never transform. Recognize that you need to do the work, actual sustained therapeutic work, addressing attachment wounds, or you will lose the one person whose capacity is sufficient to create the relationship you deserve. The empath will leave, not because they stop loving you, because they finally love themselves enough to stop betraying themselves for your comfort. Don't let it reach that point. Do the work now, not after they leave. Now, while they're still there, while relationship is still possible. Do the work, not to keep them, to become worthy of keeping them. That's the truth. That's what the emotional mistake teaches. That extraordinary patience has limits, that those limits protect both people, that the empath leaving is both ending and beginning. Ending of relationship that wasn't serving either person, beginning of potential transformation for avoidant and actual healing for empath. Both are necessary. Both are appropriate. The mistake happens. The empath leaves. Both are permanent. Only the avoidant's choice to finally do the work or the empath's choice to honor their leaving by staying gone and healing determine what comes next. Choose accordingly.